Welcome back to Leveraging Leadership, where we unpack the art of business leadership. I'm your host, Emily Sander, Chief of Staff turned Executive Leadership Coach. I work with people to help them step into effective leadership and realize their professional and personal goals. If you have known failure and success, if you have had good bosses and bad bosses, if you are a high achiever and want new ideas, and if you want the practical and tactical side of things, then you are in the right place. This show is all about finding your points of greatest influence and leveraging them to better serve those around you. Today, we are joined by guest Jon Kidwell. Jon, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Emily. This is awesome. I've been looking forward to this for weeks, so thank you.
Oh, good. Me too. I had a chance to read your book, so Redefine Your Servant Leadership, which we will get into in a minute. My very first question is, as I was reading your book, if I ever forgot who wrote it, I would just look at the cover and I was wondering, what was the photographer's prompt to make you do this expression? And for those listening, I wouldn't call this a smile. I wouldn't call this happy. It's more like unadulterated exuberance. Yeah, elated. So what was the prompt for that?
Goodness, I don't know. So his name is Zach. He's a wonderful photographer. And it probably was because he asked me something ridiculous or funny or said something and then like just in the moment. And honestly, like there's so much to be so joyful and kind of exuberant about. And don't let me pull that away from hard things that we all do. But, there are those things that we get to get really excited about. And he caught me in one of those. And yes, that forever means that my very average and excited looking mug is there.
Good job, Zach. That's a good photographer who captures those moments. But
that's right.
Anyway, I just have a little fun with you. But can you please just do a kind of brief intro of who you are and where you've come from and what got you to writing this book about servant leadership?
Yeah, thank you. I'm a trained teacher, and I taught in high school and elementary school for just 6 years. I was supposed to go be a principal. That was the plan until I got pulled and kind of where is my mission and how do I get into that? And it took me into leadership and business and wanting to lead and develop teams and figure out if we can bring things to market, but doing it for something bigger than just me or more than just the bottom line. So I found myself working in a global not-for-profit based here in Houston and had a lot of opportunity, a lot of hard work, a lot of responsibility given. And I was promoted 7 times in 6 years and found myself leading a team of 1,100 people and being responsible for big swaths of the business, which was super fun and doing it all for a good cause. And then kind of forcibly changed direction and said, okay, I love this leadership stuff, right? Like a whole lot of us go into organizations. We're like, I'm in the marketing thing. I am in the IT thing. I'm in this. And everyone's like, what's your thing? And I was like, people. Like I love leadership. I love people. I love thinking through those pieces of it and building and developing teams. And so I went back and my wife and I sat down and said, what are we going to do? And I said, I want to help leaders. And we built a leadership development company around that. And that's what I get to do today. And the whole Redefine Your Servant Leadership book came out of the fact that I wish this is the book I had just over 10 years ago when, for those that haven't read it, I got a really good piece of honest feedback on my ability or inability to engage in some conflict, some confrontation, and how that might be coming off. And it sent me down this path of figuring out how did I build myself into this scenario where I thought I was doing everything right. And I was so blindly missing some things that I needed to be able to be a well-rounded kind of influential leader.
So you opened the book with this quote and you ended it. So it's on page 30 here if you were to buy Jon's book. It says, Jon, I know you're an honest person, but your inability to engage in conflict and share what you're thinking in these meetings makes me and others question your integrity. You need to make a change and engage with us or you won't be part of this team. So when you say like strong direct feedback, that's what we're talking about here. So that kind 100%. Of was the catalyst to send you off on this other path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And your book is called Redefine Your Servant Leadership, which means it needs to move from something to something else. And I love the 9 myths that you have in your book about servant leadership, because a lot of them like, yep, yes, and yes. And I know that mission is a big theme in your book.
Yeah.
And you talk about mission first, people always, and being mission driven. So one of your main myths was servant leaders have to be people pleasers. They got to go around pleasing everyone. And you say instead, be mission driven. And that's the goalpost to aim for. So with that in mind, how does one define their mission? Or like, I don't know my mission, Jon. How do I define that for myself? And then how do I define that for my organization or team?
Great question. And I think you put it in the order that is needed. I think I got to know mine before I can get out there for the organization or the team. And for me, I've just found that the more clearly I sit in that sweet spot of what am I super passionate about that I'm going to do whether you pay me or not, that I'm also competent in, and that there is a need. Like when those things come together, and this is me starting to interject, like how might I actually figure out that mission? This is stuff that you are naturally drawn to, right? That we're drawn into, to the environment, into safety, and to kind of protecting those things. We're drawn into people service organizations. We are drawn into creating resources, wealth for ourselves, for other people. Like we get drawn into these different areas, and that's a good thing. And so, what are we passionate about? Where do my skills kind of align in there, right? So I'm super passionate about running, but I'm not going to win anything. So it's not my mission to go win like the Boston Marathon, nor is it my mission to kind of change how people run. I think I'm okay. I desperately love teaching. I love leading people. I have a high value on service, and that, along with this idea that I see so much potential that could come when leaders get better, everything else gets better. I saw something the other day that a manager has more impact on how well your life is going than your therapist, and I was like,
wow,
ain't that the sad truth? And like,
is.
so that type of stuff is like, I got to get in there because I like doing it. I think I have a skill and a competence for being able to do it. And there is a need. And like all of those things coming together saying that is a good mission that's bigger than just me, that I can start going. And if I can define that for myself, then we in our organizations can start doing that, right? One of the ones that I work with, actually, the mission that they are on only has so much to do with the work. It really has to do with the change that they hope to see in the community, in the world, right? That they want to build up communities. They want to build up people. So part of their mission is we do constructive work, right? They're a construction company. We do construction work. It's a fun play on words too. But they do it so that they can help their people, their community, and things they care about around the world thrive. And so it puts that piece to, why do we do all the hard work that we do? We do it for things we care about that are larger than ourselves.
It's almost like, what impact do you want to have in the world? And then what does your life and a subset of that, your career, what does that need to look like to get you to optimize that? And one of the skills you talk about, one of the 8 essential skills would be discernment. So as you go through your day, and it's all nice and on theory and on paper, but as you go through your day and the rubber meets the road, ooh, all right, which direction do I go? What choice do I make?
Yeah.
Whether it's a sweeping decision for the company or just kind of a interaction with the person, what choice do you make? So can you talk about remembering your mission or keeping that in mind as you go through the day?
Yes, right. One, anybody that's listening here that's like, I'm a people leader, I'm a manager, the decisions that we make every single day, there's one data point that says that we all make 30,000 decisions a day. And I would say if you are a leader, you're making more than that, because that is essentially the job, right? And then you bucket into that there's this idea that we are making right and wrong decisions often, when we are probably making good, better, best decisions most of the time. Um, and so how can I keep it into a perspective? One of the questions I like to ask myself based on what you said, right? How do I make sure I'm aligned to the mission when I'm making decision? Is what's the purpose,
Mm.
right? Like, what's the purpose of what we are doing? Am I answering this question because of me? Because of what I need right now in this moment? Am I making it because ultimately I want to provide constructive work that allows people, places in the world to thrive in the things that we care about? So, what is the purpose? Is a great reflective question for me, and I found for others as you start to think about that. Um, the other thing that I think kind of is built into discernment is reps, getting reps under your belt. That if every single time this is the pass fail decision, it's going to be the make or break. It's all of those. I mean, my shoulders are going up just thinking about that, right? Like that is a lot of pressure, and discernment comes from knowledge applied. Uh, you got to get some experience, which builds some wisdom, which then allows you to see things through a much greater perspective, and one that, in my experience, allows the mission to come in, because I'm not just making the informational based, the analytical based, but when I have enough reps in the game, everything kind of slows down. And I actually can say, okay, here's this factor of information. Here's the analysis. Well, you know what? Here's the people pace, please. This is at play, right? I got to think about culture. And oh, yes, this is ultimately what we are trying to achieve, right? And so now I can look at it a little bit more holistically the more reps I give myself. And as a leader, well, that's when I get to start to really leverage a decision, an action, kind of a point in time where maybe every decision is not 1 + 1 = 2, but I can make decisions where it's more of 10 times 10 equals 100 type of thing, and that's what I want to be able to do through good discernment and using wise decisions.
I think there was an important distinction in there between knowledge, which is the accumulation of facts and
Yeah,
information, and then wisdom, which
yeah,
is applying that to different situations in real life, which you need both. So don't forego knowledge, but make sure you combine that with wisdom and discernment and all these different things. One other question that you had that I loved in the book was, does this create an opportunity to serve the mission? So if you're
yeah,
sitting there and you're asking yourself that, that's a really good lens to look at it through, or channel to look at it through, in terms of, I can see that, all right, I have a big sweeping decision for the company. Does this create an opportunity to serve our mission? Or I have this one-on-one coming with my colleague. How I'm going to approach that, like which one creates an opportunity to serve the mission about what I want to be about. So I think that's a good prompt as well.
yeah. Thank you for reminding and for elevating that,
I'll
because
just
that,
continue to
like,
quote your book back to you if this.
I appreciate that. Is wonderful, because as you were talking, I was thinking, yep, wisdom and knowledge, and all I could think about was the funny quote that I'm pretty sure I got from a cowboy meme somewhere about, when we break it down, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing that it does not fit on a fruit salad, right? And like the oversimplification of it, but yes, does it serve the mission? Is a great kind of go, no go, pass, fail on, hey, this can be a great framework for me to say, maybe I need to change course.
Yeah. And I also think I want to highlight too, it's not good or bad. It wasn't like, oh, it's a good or bad decision. You're a good or bad person. Making the best decision you can with all the information you have at the time with
Yeah.
applied wisdom is what you want to do. And sometimes it's choice A with its pros and cons and choice B with its pros and cons. And you just choose. So
Yeah.
there's that element too. You also talk about this productive tension where, and maybe you can talk about the Hercules
Yeah.
hold and that
Yeah.
diagram, but there's this productive tension between service and leadership and, the financial aspect, profit and purpose and all these things. So maybe just tee us up with that concept and we can go
Yeah.
from there.
So for those that are watching, right, like if you've ever seen The World's Strongest Man or never seen it's a very large person on a platform holding these pillars that look like ancient Greece, kind of pantheon type stuff, and then they're pointed outward. And then there's these chains and things that are holding it, and they're 352 pounds each. So like ripping you apart 100%, right? And we as leaders, as people managers, we feel this. There is the relationship that I want and need to create with you, and there are the results that we need to deliver inside of the organization. There is the tension of we have to produce certain things by deadlines, and um, perhaps I want to be a leader that says, hey, this work-life integration, work-life balance stuff is important. You need to be off and be on, and those things pull us apart. The how do I generate profit while also being generous? Like these are good tensions that if you think about that Hercules hold, what happens if I let go of one of those pillars? Well, I am going to get flung
Well, yeah.
one way, right? Like I hold on to one chain and it's like, whoo, here I go all the way over to the side. And if anybody is underneath that, results, relationship only, kind of all work, no play, that pillar's coming down real hard on top of us. And so this tension, just like when we lift weights, it actually creates the strength, right? That I can be a focused and flexible leader, that I can be a humble and confident leader, that we can do purpose and profit. And perhaps at some point, these actually start to become mutually beneficial to one another because they're creating something completely new than an all results or all relationship based organization. Or, oh, we're so greedy, it's all about profits, to, you know what, we don't have enough to pay our people because we keep giving everything away, right? And that kind of idea of bringing these together creates something that is stronger. And the piece that I just want to tell to all leaders, that platform is heavy. Those things change depending on where we are. Like I got to get really clear on expectations, and I don't always know what to communicate. And then I got to hold people accountable to stuff that I might not have clearly communicated, right? Like all of that. Nobody says you have to hold those pillars by yourself. You can invite, and you need to build people around you through relationships, through feedback loops, through vulnerability based trust conversations where others are actually saying like, hey, like I can hold a little bit here, I can hold a little bit here, I can hold a little bit here.
And I think an important word that you said is or. So and versus or, so that you can do this and this, not this or this. And there's that whole element in this productive tension piece. So, and that's maybe a premise of your 9 myths and kind of these different things we're fighting against, that we pit each other, that we pit against each other. Yeah. And really it's a false choice. So it's
a false choice. And for me, and I've found for others, maybe for you or for others listening, that I believed if I was not all this, then I must be all that, yeah. Right? If I'm not all this, then I'm all that, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to do this, even though I know that there may be pain. And those, right, we'll go through a couple of them quick. Like those were things that created a misguided servant direction for me, like must be people pleasing. Because as soon as I can't keep you happy, that means that I'm being self-serving, and that's how you're going to look at me, right? Like, oof, that I must always be available. Like I got my phone, I'm always here. You can get me anytime. I got an open door policy. I got all these things. You play that out to the nth degree, and 24/7, you are always at the beck and call. And now I don't have any energy. I don't have any margin. I don't have anything for the priorities in my life or for the priorities at work. And if I'm not available, then it means that I don't care, right? Kind of playing these things out and saying, it's not that. I had to kind of remove the fog from my own glasses to say, oh, if I'm not completely naive, if I actually have information and make honest decisions, that's not conniving, right? That being naive is a choice, but so is being aware and still making a good, right decision. Also a choice.
Well, I think that's a good little little exercise people can do. Okay, if I continued with my behavior now to the nth degree and only did that, what is the ultimate outcome? It's like, ooh, maybe not that. And my myths were servant leaders have to be nice. And
Yeah,
instead you say, go for kind truth. And
that's
then
right.
also servant leaders are passive people. They just kind of are a
Mm.
doormat and let people walk all over them. And in that case, it's being assertive. So, I mean,
Mhm.
if you're nice, that's certainly great in some scenarios, but if you're nice all the time and perhaps you don't give someone feedback they need to hear, well, you're not actually helping them get better. You're just being nice.
And that's one of the tenets of servant leadership, as Robert Greenleaf put it out there, is that we are doing these things to help people grow, right? And one of the things that I love from his book is a servant leader is always accepting, but they do not always accept performance as good enough. And that to me is a great kind of model, a phrase of that's what the kind truth does. Because I connect with you so much, Emily, that being nice, I could be a super nice guy. I want to be a super nice guy. My own kind of conflict, disagreement, that kind truth thing was something that I had to step into. And on the reflection, I realized that at some point I had made a switch that being nice was about you to being nice was about how you thought of me.
Mm.
And like you said, then it's no longer helpful. It doesn't actually help you grow. It just makes sure that you think well of me. And the kind truth is actually very hard. It is grounded in love and service and saying, I care and want what is best for you. And for those of us that have that personality, like even at my own discomfort, sometimes I'm going to lean into there's spinach on your teeth. I'm going to lean into this is not good enough. The lean into, hey, I see this for you. I want you to achieve these things. And if A, B, and C aren't covered, I don't see that happening. Now, how can I help you do that?
I remember I had a sports coach. I was playing soccer, and he would scream at me, "Get over, get back, Emily, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Man, like you're not being very nice here." But
Yeah.
he was telling me literally how to get in position to do my job better. And we
Mhm.
had our talks afterward. He was like, "Look, I'm yelling at you because I care. And I see your potential, which I understood." And he was like, when I stop yelling at you, that's when you should worry because then I don't
Mhm.
care. And then I've given up.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So there is that constructive feedback, even if it is someone literally screaming at you to
Mm.
do something else. So, but I appreciated that because he made me a better player. And that's what
Yeah,
a
it's
coach.
a that great analogy of he's telling me the things I need to get into position to do my job well.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, that's powerful.
Yes. And you give a practical example of this tension where you want to be a servant leader, you want to help your people in their lives, but in one example, you wanted a paternity and maternity leave, and you were very transparent in your book. It said, we don't have that at the time of writing this. We don't have that policy. And it
Yeah,
upsets me and it frustrates me, but that's
100%.
sometimes how things happen. So I like that you were real about this, not just some
Aw.
pie in the sky kind of everyone should care. So maybe talk through some of those practical examples that you've gone through yourself for how people listening can navigate those themselves.
Yeah, thank you. Great. So one of the key things that we talked about is a character, kind of this internal fortitude, if you will, right? And that you have the ability to meet the demands of reality, and a piece of that is integration or accepting the good and embracing the bad.
Yeah.
I have benefited in a corporate culture from being able to take time away when my children were born. Um, I also, as a business owner, took 2 weeks off when my third child was born, when I had that, and I could make that sacrifice, and it was a choice, right? Oh, I'm not going to be working, producing revenue for these couple of weeks, and but it's a family thing. And what I laid out in the book, and what is still very true, and I think a lot of us face this in organizations, that there are things that we want to be able to do and to provide that we cannot yet do.
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean that I shouldn't talk about them, that people get energy and will align when they see a positive vision of the future, and they respect when you can be honest enough to say, I'm not there yet. We're not there yet. We need to do X to get to Y. you actually get a lot of buy-in and maybe some people help, right? And so one of those for us is I want to have a full paid maternity, paternity time in our business. And the truth of the matter is right now is we are a small but mighty leadership development firm that gets paid mostly on whatever we bring in. And the margin that we have is for some of the growth that we want. And we don't have the capacity to be able to do that. And we're upfront, and it doesn't mean that we're not going to say, take all the time you want, right? I mean, we legally have to, FMLA, right? And
Sure.
for those that don't know, that doesn't mean people get paid. It means that you just don't lose your job. But like, of course we would honor that. Of course we would do those things. If we have the opportunity to be generous and say, hey, like, you get X, right? But we can't do all the way there. We're going to do that. We're going to step in that general direction. Other things that usually come in around that are kind of pay, any pay disparities of we're below market value. The transparency to say, here's what our finances look like, right? Here's where all this margin goes to. Here's the breakdown. I mean, not people, right? Here's what Emily makes. Here's what John makes. Like, that just gets weird. But here's the breakdown of all of these things. And for us to be able to do this at the level that you all want and we want to do for you, we need to achieve X, right? We need this much in capital reserves. We need this much margin inside of there so that we can comfortably raise rates so that we can be confident we don't have to come back and take that away in 13 months. That would be awful.
That would be
right?
awesome.
That would be awful. Hey, we think we could do this. And then we were just kidding. So working through and talking through those type of things are great. And I have just found when in doubt, be generous and kind of go on the principles that you have, not the policies that are in place. Meaning we had somebody that lost a family member. We are very much driven on you get paid for the work that you do. It's just the nature of our industry and where we are right now. And they weren't going to be able to do some of the work. And it was like 5 figures that we were talking about somewhere in there. And we said, we're not going to ask for that back. Like, we'll figure it out. All of the rest of us are going to pitch in because if I lost a family member and I wasn't able to do some of the stuff I agreed to do, I know it's fair that I don't get that money, but I would want someone to turn around and say, hey, you need this now more than we do. And so we want to do things like that. And they're going to build us into the place where we ultimately get to set kind of benefits and practices that support those type of behaviors more routinely.
And I think you obviously pick your moments with that, but what loyalty does that engender? I mean, oh my gosh, if you had a company or a team that had your back like that, how would you feel? And what would you do in return for that? So, and I appreciate that. And I've had instances in COVID where, the handbook said, if you have immediate family members who have passed away, you can go take time off. But in certain cultures and in certain families, extended family members such as cousins were considered like siblings because they lived together and all these things. And so it was just this, okay, we need to put our humanity hat on right now and let people do what they need to do, even if it's just for a day, and then come back and not be, quote unquote, by the book in certain situations.
I think the easiest kind of simple principle is treat other people as you want to be treated, right? Like, and sometimes I have to actually evaluate, like, how do I want to be treated? Oh, I would prefer that someone would ask me and would engage me and ask what I actually want, right? But treat other people as you want to be treated, and you're going to go far. We wrote about it in the book in that principled manner. That there's a CEO that we work with that said, this person has not lived up to the expectations. They got to go. They're impacting culture. They're impacting safety. They're doing all these things. And it's between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I'm not going to release them between there. And this is going to cost me money. And they did it anyways. And then fast forward 6 to 9 months, another person in their organization had a terrible tragedy in their family where a child was injured. And he and I were on the phone, and he's trying to figure out, like, this is what the policy says about sick leave. This is what this is. This is, and he's going and he's doing the calculus. Yeah. He's trying to discern. Shows up the next day, and one of his executives said, oh, here's what we did. We all pitched in, we figured it out, and we told them to take all the time you need, and they're going to be fine, and we're going to pay them. And he's like, wow. And he's like, well, this is what you taught us to do. Take care of
Wow.
people. Right. And it's like, oh, how much of a positive cultural return and loyalty, like you said.
Yes.
And that specific CEO, they're doing just fine. They're growing 25% year over year in an industry that grows like 3 to 5%, and their retention is extremely high compared to their industry average. So when we do that, right, when we put the mission first and say we're going to do these things, and then we love people always, right, mission first, people always, it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will, of driving towards healthy relationships and healthy results.
Yeah. I love those examples. It literally, I was like, oh, like warmed my heart. And I think, mission first, people always includes things like, I'm going to show you our financials and I'm going to tell you what I'm trying to do and like where we are now, and being very transparent. I mean, that's serving people as well.
100%.
So I think when you were giving that example, like, yes, I would have responded very positively to someone who had a talk with me like that. You also talk about empowering people, and I like it's based on myth 9, which is servant leaders avoid power. And not me, I'm a servant leader,
Yes.
but instead you say empowering others is it transferring your power to others? So like by authority or my position or what have you, I do have this power. And now I'm going to enable you and empower you to be self-sufficient and to have agency in your role.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Is that you have it, Emily, right? I have it. We have those things. And then as we grow as leaders, as we take on responsibility, as we have people's lives and livelihoods kind of under our care, we can make all those decisions. We can choose to avoid those and abdicate those, right? Which is that like, oh no, I don't, like, self-determine all these things. And at the same time, that the only way that we can truly empower others is through what we have. I think that we have to face the fact that as leaders, we do have a lot of influence, a lot of quote unquote power, and not just the like I'm in charge power, the like I have the ability to direct, to self-determine, to kind of point people in the way of one thing or another, and power to make a difference and to leave a lasting impact on our work, on our community, on individuals' lives. That is there. And can I empower folks to do that as well? Whether that be some of the decisions that they make inside and outside the organization, and some of the decisions that they need to make for their growth and development. And so we say in there, servant leaders share power responsibly. That it's not a flippant thing. You don't take it for granted, and you do it in a way where you can develop folks, where you can test and make sure that there is character there. Right? I think I would be irresponsible to bring in an untested 17-year-old, very, very sweet, smart individual and say, here are all of our financial statements, and I need you to be able to be in control of the kingdom, if you will, and tell us how we're doing. Like, that might not be the best path for that. And that instead, perhaps it is somebody comes in, we've gone through the interview process, we've figured out that this is a person of integrity that is going to be honest with these things, that has the skills and the competence to be able to produce financial reports, that can take money that we have and invest it so that we can earn more money, and that they can build out positive projections. And at that level, it's, hey, I got to let you do your job, right? So here, you make decisions on these, you decide these things. Here's what I need from you. And me as the owner, me as the leader, that's where I start empowering by moving those responsibilities and abilities to those other individuals.
That's a great example. Yeah. The 17-year-old kid might be like a great kid, super smart, has lots of potential. But if you just dump that on them, that's not going to be a great outcome for anyone. But I love the productive tension, and I love the it's not either or, it's a and, like this and that. Let's go to your last chapters, which are about amplify. So amplifying, and I love, love, love this question, which is, what would it look like if you went all in? Ooh. So tell us about that.
What might happen, right? I get my own experience in coaching folks. Often, I'm going to use the word right, even though I want to do the big air quotes. So people that can see it, right? They can see I'm doing that. The big bunny ears. But often we know what's right. And what I mean by that is we know a good answer. We know maybe even the best answer. And then there's all this stuff that gets in the way. Well, I'm going to upset this person, or I'm going to have to do this, or it's going to be a little hard over here, or whether it's a person problem, whether it's I'm behind on sales numbers. Most of us know the answer. Go make more calls, right? Go get out there and start doing these things. And yet we convince ourselves, we excuse it. We do. And maybe I'm just preaching to my own choir over here, but I get the sense that a lot of us do this, where we put these things in the way. Imagine if you just went all in on the good, or the quote unquote right. What might be possible? What if we actually said, you know what? I'm not going to fall into the trap of it actually being utopian. But what if the standard for this was just, here's what the ideal looks like, and the ideal allows for the imperfection, right? Utopia doesn't, but the ideal allows for the imperfection and says that's how we grow through those things. What might be possible? What might be possible if I actually said, in an organization where I might be scared of being judged about how much profit we produce, hey, y'all, we're going for it, and we are going to create even more profit margin. And here's what we're going to do when we make that. We're going to dump more back into you, the people that help produce that profit. We're also going to take some and we're going to reinvest it into the business, and we're going to give it away to the things that you all care about in the community. Like, that's a good, great thing. There's not a lot of downside on that. And we could sit here and lay out cons, I have no doubt. But just imagine if we did that on some of those other things that just said, I mean, what would happen if I went all in on being honest all the time? Interesting, right? So go all in on those things that are good and right and life-giving. And they start to kind of become this thing where other people want to do that too.
And when I read that, I wrote down in the margin, burn the boats. So it's like, don't give yourself a way out. Don't give yourself excuses. Just go all in.
Love that. There's a song called Burn the Ships, right? And we have played that song in different scenarios of just things that it's like, hey, we're going all in on this. It came out of when some of the Spanish folks came over and they said there's no turning back. So they burned the ships on the shore. There's a song that's out there that you could Google. It's called Burn the Ships. And it's like, burn the ships. I'm missing it in the moment, nor I'm not a good singer. But it's that idea that let's go all in on the things that are good, right, and life-giving, that really just return and help people, places thrive, and don't look back. Keep going at it. So I love the burn the boats. I couldn't help but bring in that idea about that song, Burn the Ships. And it was a COVID mantra. It was a mantra on starting a business. It was a mantra in a whole bunch of different other places. So it's a fun one.
And I like that. For you listening, what can you go all in on right now that's going to benefit the people around you? Mm-hmm. Jon, it's been an absolute pleasure. We could have spoken for hours and hours and hours, yes. But I will let you go. If people want to pick up the book or connect with you, where is the best place to do that?
If they're looking to grab the book, it's the title is Redefine Your Servant Leadership, and we made the website super hard. It is also redefineyourservantleadership.com. So if you go to redefineyourservantleadership.com, you can figure out all of the book pieces there. And then for me, it's my name. I'm a Jon with no H. So Jon Kidwell, and LinkedIn, Instagram, you will find me there. And I would love to connect with anybody. That'd be so much fun to continue the conversation out in the social sphere.
Beautiful. Well, we will have all that information in the show notes. And Jon, thank you once again for being on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. This has been wonderful.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.